Welcome back to the Smokin Layups podcast. I'm your host, Joey O, here with my boy Jack. We're here as always to break down the NBA and give you a preview of the upcoming national TV games.
Glad to be here. Let's get going.
Let's kick things off. I want to talk about some of the teams that have been real disappointing so far this year. To me, it's really just it's a strong band of four teams. We have only one in the Eastern Conference, the Nets. Other than that, every team that we expected to be in the playoffs is basically in the playoff picture, at least in the play-in already. And then on the West, there are actually three teams that at least their fan bases had high expectations coming into this season, with LeBron and the Lakers, Steph and the Warriors, and Kawhi and the Clippers. So first things first, let's start talking about the Nets. Now, I don't want to touch on Kyrie's recent uh, issues, but this team has been getting their ass whooped up and down the court. Ben Simmons still does not want to shoot. And now with the suspension of Kyrie, they have no way to climb back out of this hole that they have found themselves in. I cannot wait to continue betting against this team.
All right. So let's get into it. First big number I got for you. Out of 30 NBA teams, the Brooklyn Nets are ranked 30th in defensive rating. It just could not be any worse than anyone else in defense. They're just terrible. Let's look on offense. Kevin Durant is bringing the ball up like half the time. Kyrie isn't. He's being double teamed, triple teamed, quadruple teamed 100% of the time with the ball. He himself said he's going to be turning it over a bunch. A lot of people were counting on Ben Simmons to actually be productive for this team. And so far, he's only produced rebounds and fouls. Uh, they are so limited, so limited. They've been hurt. I know Joe Harris has been hurt. He's played a little, but he's still been hurt some. Seth Curry has been hurt some. He's not playing tonight specifically. They lost Bruce Brown. We talked about that as a big loss. I mean, they're missing people to put the ball in the bucket. And, you know, we're not getting into why he's off the court, but now for 5 straight games, they don't have like 40% of their points. So these next 5 games are going to be a nightmare for them, on top of the fact that they're already in a walking nightmare. There's so many issues. I could go through and probably find where this team was in the bottom half of the league of many key categories. But if you just watch them play, I haven't seen a bunch, but I would imagine that knowing almost like 70% of the points are like responsible or points responsible for coming from two people, and then such a drop off in the player caliber of who else can put the ball in the bucket. Like, what are they supposed to do? It's I said that they had the roster to be capable of things that other people weren't. And I guess what they're capable of is being the worst team defensively in the NBA and only having two legit scorers, one of who isn't going to be playing for a little bit. So, yikes. They very easily could end up with the worst record in the league. And that's simply because if Kyrie just doesn't come back to the court in major fashion, that's a big loss. If the Nets go down the toilet, Kevin Durant will sit. I promise you that he will sit. And then they have Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, and Joe Harris, Nick Claxton out there. That is not going to work. Ben Simmons will probably find a reason not to play as well. And then the big three that they had coming into the season, they have a big zero. So honestly, I don't see how it gets better from here. Back to you.
The Nets are a train wreck from a coaching standpoint, from a roster and front office standpoint, and seemingly from a locker room standpoint with all the drama they have going on. That is the one of the worst situations in the NBA right now. On to the Western Conference. First team I wanted to talk about here was the Golden State Warriors. This team has lost their last 4 games, and the teams that they have lost to have been horrendous. They lost to the Hornets, granted in Charlotte. They lost in Detroit to the Pistons. They lost in Miami to the Heat, and they lost in Orlando to the Young Magic. And not only did they lose these games, they had leads in almost all of them and blew them. This team has been playing no defense whatsoever this year, giving up tons and tons of points. They have given up 130 points 3 different times already this year, especially for a team that hung their hat on defense last year. To only have held teams under 110 points. Actually, no times. That was only in regulation. They held the Hornets to under 110 points. This is unbelievable for a team that prides themselves on the defensive end of the floor, and especially wondering if they're going to pay Draymond. I don't know how you pay Draymond when the defense he's leading is one of the worst in the league. They're not as bad as the Nets, but they are up there, especially for what we expect.
All right. So here's a few key things for you. Defensive rating. Warriors are ranked 26th. So, like you said, they have not been good. Pace, they are ranked third in the NBA. And then if we go to back over to turnover percent, they are 23rd in the NBA. So right now we have a bad defensive team playing incredibly fast and also turning the ball over. That is key for disaster. Last year that they weren't that good on the road. This year they've proven that they will still not be good on the road. Um, I, there's a lot of things that might be adding up to why these problems are problems, but in my mind, it's mainly because they just won a championship, but they have older players. Draymond is not able to put the ball in the bucket like a usual starting player in the NBA would, because he also doesn't have crazy pick and roll skills to go up, cram the ball off an oop, get a crazy offensive rebound. I mean, he's just not a beast athletically or, physically whatsoever like he was. Klay Thompson is not the same either. He's admitted that to the media, saying he's frustrated with hearing how people are saying he's not the same player. Well, of course I'm not. I tore my Achilles and then tore my ACL or vice versa. Yeah, that's tough, but it doesn't change the fact that you can't move the same way. You're not shooting the same way. One thing that some people might not realize is there could be a little sort of line in the sand being drawn between the starting five and the bench unit in the Warriors, because Klay Thompson is being phased out for Jordan Poole. Jordan Poole got smacked in the face by Klay Thompson's buddy Draymond. I'm not sure if it's incredibly linked, but there's not love in the locker room right now. There's opposition, and a team that is aging I mean, their star player is still playing like a star, but that's Steph Curry. Um, it's just tough for them. I really wonder if they can turn it around. I think they can. I don't know if they will. Um, this is too hard to call for me yet because in the back half of the season they can improve on the road, and they're if they still play great at home, they can make the playoffs, and all they have to do is make the playoffs and make a run at it. So I'm not going to say they're done or out of it, but that like you said, they're not the Warriors we're used to seeing. So I don't know. They're going to have to find some better identity other than a team that plays bad defense, runs very fast, and continues to turn the ball over. If they can't adjust those, I mean, the pace isn't an issue, but the other two, the turnovers and the defense, have to get better. And if they fix that, I'm sure we'll be talking about them differently, but let's wait and see.
Couldn't have said it any better myself. They have some real division in that locker room. The Warriors, they are just not the team that we saw last year. They might be aging out of the team being led by the Stephs, the Clays, and the Draymonds, because Clay and Draymond are very much waning in their impact. And Steph, as good as he is, there's only so much more time that he can play at this level. And then Iguodala's, he's dust. They have DiVincenzo, who they're hoping is going to be a guy, but he hasn't been able to stay on the court in years. They have nothing but young guys now, and these young guys do not play defense. They do not pass the ball. They do not play like the Warriors of old. And this team is just they're changing, and that's okay. But I think it's time to take this losing streak and this poor start serious, because this team has some issues. Keeping it in the same division, as we will again, because all three of these teams struggling in the West are in the Pacific Division. So it's actually both the LA teams. First, I wanted to talk about Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers. Kawhi he missed almost 2 whole years of basketball, and he was not able to uh he's still not available, like, right now. He is not playing. When even first game back, he started off the bench. This is a team that looked great on paper, but has a lot of old guys who will be declining at some point, and there's no reason it wouldn't be this year. The only young guy I can think of who really starts, the only young guys who really start for them, they have Zubac, who's relatively young, and then they have our boy Terrence Mann, who's renowned for just killing Rudy Gobert all those times in the playoffs. Really proved himself. But besides that, they don't have a young guy who's really leading the team, and they just have a lot of individual scorers, a lot of ISO players. They are a team uh, who could use the ball movement of the Warriors of old. They would be devastating if they played like that, but they do not. They have not. And they have been losing games. And when they've been winning, they have been winning in tight games. This is not a team who has been dominating games the way that good teams dominate games. Despite the fact that they are 4-4, I am very worried about what is going on in LA.
All right, some more numbers for you. So let's go to the net offensive rating out of every team in the NBA. Where do we find the Clippers? 29th. Let's go to assist to turnover ratio. Where do we find the Clippers? 28th. Let's go over to pace, and where do we find the Clippers? 20th. So what we just said was offensively, they are almost at the very, very bottom of the NBA in efficiency, meaning they're not putting the ball in the bucket enough per how many shots are going in. Their assist to turnover ratio is very terrible too, which means they're not sharing the ball hardly whatsoever without also just dumping it off and giving it to the other team. And thirdly, the pace, they're 20th in the NBA, so not last, but in the bottom portion, meaning if they're not being efficient on the offensive end, they're actually giving their opponents more opportunities to score on these fast break, situations, and they're not playing quickly either. That leads to close games. You take out their important players, Kawhi, not sure who else has missed significant time. I don't watch them too much, but other people have missed time for that team. They're just dysfunctional. They they haven't looked impressive, and I question whether or not this roster will actually compete, even if they make the playoffs. I mean, they built it around two players, one of whom won't just doesn't see the court. Like the last time we saw Kawhi in the playoffs is when he won the the NBA title. Am I right? I believe so. Yes. So they're counting on a ghost of Kawhi's past and a Paul George who can be very human at times, and then a ragtag group of older guys to band together against these young, athletic, really talented teams. It's not going to happen if they don't take the regular season more serious. They're going to find themselves with a tough road out of the Western Conference. If they happen to lose anybody along the way on that road, that's going to be just pretty hard for them because I really see them having trouble rolling out more than seven guys in the playoffs. I don't think their eighth guy would give them best minutes against any other team in the Western Conference Finals or the Finals. And if you're losing one of seven dudes in the playoffs, you're pretty much toast. I mean, just ask a Celtics fan. Our bench could not hang last finals, and it was tough. So, I mean, it's bad. I'm not a fan of Marcus Morris, but I looked at the player stats. He is averaging the second most minutes on the team. He's actually played the fourth most minutes. I mean, he's hardly shooting above 30% from three. And I I know the best shooters are up around 40. I mean, I can't stand that guy. And if he has the ball in his hands and he's just chucking it all over the place, I can only imagine like what that means for that team. If I turned the TV on and I saw him with the ball, I would flip the channel. But that's my take on the Clippers. They, if they're fully healthy, and they got fire in their eyes, they definitely can give anyone trouble. But they don't seem fully healthy. They don't seem like they have fire in their eyes. And if they don't get their act together, like you said, the Warriors, I mean, they might make the play in, but the 8 seed versus the 1 seed, I guarantee you, whoever the 1 seed in the West is, they're going to be dangerous. So wake up, Clippers, come on.
Great stuff as usual, Jack. Our final team that's been a big disappointment. Lately, they've kind of turned things around a little bit. This team is the Los Angeles Lakers. And well, first off, I need to get a little tangent. This team screwed me in the most horrible bad beat of all bad beats in their comeback win against the Pelicans when Dyson Daniels was fouled with less than 2 seconds left and missed both free throws that would have put the Pelicans up 5 with a 2-point spread in the game until the fact that Dyson Daniels misses both free throws. They come down. Austin Reeves hits Matt Ryan in the corner for a dime. And the Lakers come down and win the second. They win the overtime. They win the game. Another thing that happened that night was Lonnie Walker cemented himself as the third best player on this team. I think it was kind of inevitable that was going to happen at some point, especially because it's definitely not Westbrook. Uh, the um, the Lakers really are struggling for depth and they are struggling for shooting. Matt Ryan has been leading, is the only bright spot that they have on their team as far as shooting the ball, especially from deep. Anthony Davis has been atrocious. LeBron hasn't been good, and Austin Reeves has been solid as well. So it's are the two white boys who connected on that inbounds play, keeping that team alive right now, along with Lonnie Walker, LeBron, and AD. But this team is teetering on the edge, and if they get an injury to one of their core pieces, this team is in for some dire straits as they do not have the depth to make up for that.
So, Lakers, out of 30 teams, they are the 30th worst ranked team on offensive rating. Counter that, out of 30 teams, the Lakers are second or first in pace. So if they're running down up and down the court a bunch and they're not putting the ball in the bucket, yet the other team is getting the ball back quicker and having more opportunities to score themselves, it just means that the other team has and will probably score more points, because if the Lakers are the worst team offensively in the NBA, that means whoever they're playing is better than they are. And if they have the ball just as much, if not more, then they should score more. You talked about the two white boys that were good at shooting. They're the only two people on the Lakers even shooting above 30% from three. They're actually both shooting above 40%. But on the opposite of them, every other Lakers player literally is not even shooting 30% from three. That is crazy. That you cannot win basketball games like that. This is a three driven league. You got to put up threes. Players are being forced to learn how to shoot threes. So, this is an issue that has to be fixed or the Lakers will go nowhere. It's interesting that they shifted Westbrook to the secondary unit. It seems like he's kind of taken to it well. We'll see how much it sticks. We'll see how well it ends up going, because other teams didn't have to game plan for Westbrook on the second unit. Now they do. So maybe it, like I said, maybe it sticks, maybe it doesn't. But I mean, just flat out, if they're running around the court as much as they are, as fast as they are, and they're just throwing the ball at the backboard, they literally can only pray to win, and those prayers will not be answered. So, King James, come on, man, you gotta do better.
Thanks for joining us for the disappointments of the early NBA season. We're going to take a quick break and come right back with our national TV preview. Welcome back from our quick break to once again, the Smokin Layups podcast. I'm your host, Joey O, here with my boy, Jack. Now we are here to break down just the only national TV games we have for this weekend. We've got two today here on Friday, one tomorrow on Saturday, and none on Sunday, as we have a whole slate of all 30 teams that are playing on Monday. We're going to come back with another episode on Sunday night, Monday morning, ready for you, looking for all those games on Monday. So let's get things started. First game tonight is the Bulls at the Celtics. The Celtics are a 7-point favorite, and everyone except for the long-term injuries seems to be healthy on both teams. Jack, I'm going to let you kick us off here.
Well, interestingly enough, last season, the very first game, the Celtics played the Bulls. In the fourth quarter, the Bulls went on a 39-11 run. Similarly, but yet somehow worse, the first game they played the Bulls this season, the Bulls went on, I believe, a 43 to 45 to like 13 run. So it's kind of crazy that it happened back to back years in game one. However, last year, the Celtics bounced back and won at home by two. Um, I think a huge thing going into this game is just the fact that the Celtics have no size to stop Vucevic. Vucevic is a good center. If he's playing a team that has bigger people, thicker people, guys that do better on the boards, he can be neutralized some. Against the Celtics, it's not going to happen. He had 23 rebounds, I think, the last time they played. He might not have 20 rebounds again, but he's going to have double digit rebounds. And they've got to make sure that most of them are defensive rebounds. We do not want him coming down, crashing on the offensive boards, and giving the Bulls second chance opportunities. Zach LaVine did play the first time this season, so he is cleared to play tonight. Um, it should be a pretty healthy game for both sides, minus Rob Williams. It's going to be real interesting to see how it plays out. I do think the Celtics will bounce back, but the Bulls are a feisty team, and a Robless Celtics really has a weakness that the Bulls are specifically equipped to take advantage of. So Joe Mazzulla needs to throw out a better game plan defensively tonight, and we'll see if he comes up with it. We'll just have to wait and see. But uh, I expect it to be a pretty good game. Go Celtics.
For tonight's Celtics Bulls game, I agree. I'm definitely leaning towards the Celtics, but I would be concerned about the 7 point spread. The Celtics have just played the Cavs 2 games in a row, who might be the best team in the East. If not, if they are not, they are definitely top two, top three. They've been playing super well. Donovan Mitchell absolutely changes them as a team, and the Celtics lost to them twice in a row, while the Bulls got to play the flailing Nets as well as the terrible Hornets in the last 2 games. So not only are they feeling good, that would skew any kind of model and stuff, which is why this 7 point spread seems kind of out of whack considering how the games have been recently. But the Bulls have just not been playing anybody at all. And I think the Celtics win, but the cover is definitely questionable. It's kind of the biggest cover I'm really comfortable with in a game. Friday's second game is the Bucks at the Timberwolves. The Bucks are a 3.5 point favorite. The usual suspects are still out for the Bucks. No Chris Middleton, no Joe Ingles, but they are still playing great basketball. They're the only undefeated team in the league, and they are getting a very small spread. Personally, I love that. Even though they're on the road, they are playing Timberwolves, the Timberwolves have been very beatable lately. They have done nothing impressive, and the team is seemingly failing to gel. If I'm a Wolves fan or better, I'm terrified of either Karl-Anthony Towns or Rudy Gobert having to match up with Giannis. My favorite guy on their roster to guard him would probably be a Naz Reid. And even then, this is just a matchup nightmare for the Wolves because the Bucks, who we've commented on in the past, have great size and they can really stand up to them.
Yeah. If we look at who the T Wolves have beat so far this year, they've beat the Thunder twice. They have beaten the Spurs at home, but that was after the Spurs spanked them. And Devin Vassell was not playing the next night. And then they beat the Lakers at home. And the Lakers, I mean, are terrible. So it's a trap game. The odds makers are favoring the right team, but it really is going to be very difficult for Minnesota to come out with the win for this. I, I, yeah, I don't think they'll be able to guard Giannis. Like you said, I really want to watch this game and get a good grasp of how these teams will specifically fare against the other offensive weapons that each has. But it's definitely Bucks season, especially at just over a possession. I mean, you can clear that with free throws easy. It's it's just a great spot to grab the Bucks. It should be an exciting game. But I think the Bucks are about to come into the T Wolves territory and do whatever they want.
On to Saturday. On Saturday, we have two games. First off, we have Celtics at the Knicks. The Celtics, the line has not been listed yet for this game, but the Celtics are likely to be anywhere from a 5 to a 8-point favorite in this game. I would definitely lean towards the Celtics. They are a nightmare matchup for the Knicks, who have a very little guard who's defensively compromised. They have a wing who struggles to score against bad defenders, let alone good defenders. And then their best player is a power forward, which is the only big position that the Celtics have any depth at. The Celtics have no centers. And the worst thing they're going to have to defend is Mitchell Robinson. This is a team that this is probably going to get ugly because I know the two teams hate each other. It's Boston, New York. It's a classic rivalry. Both teams are coming off a back-to-back, and I bet Tatum will have 30 plus in the Garden, play great on defense, and bully the Knicks on Saturday night.
I agree. The Knicks have only beat the Hornets, the Pistons, and the Magic at home this year. The toughest matchup they've faced was the Hawks, and the Hawks were at the end of a brutal road trip right after they got taken advantage of by the Raptors. So, I mean, yeah, there's nothing that the Knicks will be able to do against the Celtics that they weren't able to do against the Hawks. The Celtics, in my opinion, have a more unstoppable player in Jason Tatum, and Jaylen Brown himself has been on fire to start the season. So I think Grant Williams will play big boy. He'll match up well with Randall, with Toppin. Horford will be able to contain Mitchell Robinson. Maybe we can get a big guy or two in foul trouble. But Celtics, give me the C's.
Wonderfully said. That leads us perfectly into our late game. This is a game where the Trailblazers are going into the desert. I believe those two teams are playing tonight as well. I'm gonna just check that real quick. But the Suns will likely be favored. They're favored by 10.5 tonight. They're likely going to be favored around that score tomorrow night. Anthony Simons has been carrying this team to the best of his ability, but with no Damian Lillard and a just poor amount of depth on this team, the Suns are probably going to blow. They're probably going to blow them out tonight. Probably going to blow them out tomorrow night. This Suns team has been playing great. They actually are taking care of business this year. Last year, they had a bunch of close wins, which I thought was a red flag because I think good teams win games by a lot of points. Winning time isn't always at the end of the game. Winning time is the whole game, especially first, second, third quarter, building up a big lead. That's when you really win a game. And that's what this team has been doing this year. They've been hitting their shots. Cam Johnson in the starting line has been great, and DeAndre Ayton is likely to be back tonight, and will more than likely be back tomorrow night as well. So I'm going to probably lay the points on this and give me the Suns to win in the desert.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. It's hard. See, what was so great about the Blazers when they had Lillard healthy is I don't know exactly how the minutes are being divided, but it seemed as if Anthony Simons was being used as a second of a 1-2 punch. He might have been starting, so I don't know, but they were still playing well together. After Shaden Sharp, I don't know who's providing points and minutes off the bench for the Blazers. The Suns are deeper, so I mean, if you just even if you make the starting units a wash, the Suns bench unit should be able to take control of the game and win it for them. I I think they have the coaching edge in Monty Williams, but hey, shout out to Chauncey Billups. He's done a good job. He was telling a lot of people that the Blazers looked really good in the preseason. It just wasn't translating to games. And as soon as preseason's over, boom, they kick into gear and they start off the year real hot. So something finally clicked for them. And I think that's big. I think they really might be forming a team identity under Billups, but it really can't be stated enough. Damian Lillard is the engine that drives that team. If they don't have Dame, they're going to be in third or fourth gear the whole time. And you can't play third or fourth gear against the first gear Suns at home and win. So I don't know what the spreads are, but I would probably take them if they're anything in single digits. If they're anything lower than 8, certainly, but they probably won't be. But that's my take.
Thank you for joining us again on another episode of the Smokin Layups podcast. Find out more at Bread and Circus Sports on Instagram, on YouTube, and at breadandcircussports.com. Thank you. Smokin Layups podcast is a Bread and Circus Sports production. Check us out on Instagram at Bread and Circus Sports and at breadandcircussports.com.